welcome to Annie.
Thank you.
For coming to talk to us. So just to build on Tim's introduction, Annie is the author of 2 books, the Why Smart Women series. First book published a couple of years ago, Why Smart Women Make Bad Decisions. And the book we'll be talking about tonight, Why Smart Women Buy the Lies. So
It's about Gladys Berejiklian.
Well,
it makes you think.
it does.
So Annie, so I
Yes,
think
Jess.
let's talk a bit about Annie. So as Tim said, you're an actor, a corporate communication consultant. How did you discover formal skepticism? Because those skepticism and critical thinking, it's not that big, particularly in the corporate world. I don't know about acting, but
Even less.
Well, as you said, I'm an actor. Is that on? I'm
It's
an
on.
actor by trade. So actors have good ones anyway, have an interest, a deep interest in psychology and what motivates people and whether those motivations of the character that you're playing are conscious or unconscious. So I guess in the early part of my life, when all I was doing was acting, I was still in a sort of analytical space. Anyway, then...
yes, and I've actually seen that. I've seen the rehearsal process and the way actors analyse a script. They do go into it very deeply, and
Yes.
they really try to get into the psychology of it. So
yeah. Is this action I'm about to play, does the character know consciously why they're doing this, or do they think they're doing this because of this, but actually it's an unconscious motivator or driver? And that always really interested me. And that's what, drama is sort of built on those unconscious and conscious motivators.
Okay, tell us about the corporate world.
Okay, straight to the corporate world. Okay,
Whoa.
so before I do, can I just say
Yeah,
that
sure.
I got into skepticism because I went to a physiotherapist and I was whinging about someone that was trying to give me some homeopathy because I had an injury, and I was whinging about that. And they said to me, you should go to the Australian Sceptics, and I went. And that's, thank you. And that actually, it was like I'd come home. I was like, finally,
Isn't that nice?
there's people here that don't just believe in crap. It was just wonderful. Yeah. So what was the next question? Corporate.
Yes, corporate. Well, was it the corporate world and what you experienced there that also pushed you towards
Sure. Yes, it
critical
was.
thinking?
Yes, it was. So with my partner who's sitting over here, we do a lot of training, corporate training. And I was already very aware of the fact that the notion of intuition is sometimes accurate and sometimes highly inaccurate, right? So sometimes we're blindingly, dazzlingly accurate with it. And because of that, we then think we're going to get into any context and our intuitive response is going to be accurate. And I would then get up in front of rooms of mainly women and, posit this idea that maybe some of their intuitive responses, especially in relation to hiring, or maybe staying with an idea that the company had put forward. And anyway, it was like I'd asked them to kill their firstborns. This idea that their intuition was not accurate. They hated it, and people would say, but I have this really strong gut response and it's really accurate. And I'm like, well, that's confirmation bias because you've only remembered the times and it was accurate. Anyway, I was hitting my head against a brick wall.
Did they look at you like you had 3 heads?
They did.
Like you're an alien?
They did, and they weren't happy about it. Anyway, and then on top of the corporate sector where they have Myers-Briggs and all sorts of personality testing, which are just completely erroneous and total rubbish that they're still charging people for, on top of that, I also had friends that were staying in really, mainly women, really appalling relationships based on very, very bad data because they had a feeling or the universe was maybe telling them they should stay or whatever. So I got so cranky about not being heard, I thought I'd better write a book. And that's what I did.
So that answers my question.
Yes.
What inspired you to write the Smart Women books?
Yes, that is what inspired me.
Excellent.
Was a deep crankiness.
Good indeed. And I think from reading the acknowledgements in the first one, it was a long process for you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There was a lot of, I should write a book. Should I write a book? Can I write a book?
Can I write a book? Well, I'd never written a book, but we had written a lot of scripts. So we did a lot of sort of scenes, like corporate drama. So I was used to writing scripts, but never written a book. And also, the other thing was that I was an absolute devotee of skeptical literature. So, I love Thinking Fast and Slow, Michael Shermer, The Believing Brain, and particularly Stephen Novella, The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, Your Deceptive Brain. And then I would mention these books to my friends and they'd never heard of them, right? I had just demolished them and they'd never heard of them. And I thought the reason they hadn't heard of them is they're quite boring and dry and mainly written by men. And so I thought, why don't I do something that's not boring, just as an option? And we know that comedy, that humour is one of the best cut-throughs in terms of changing people's minds. That if they can have a laugh about something, they're more likely to consider another option. So that's why I began the first book. Took me 6 years to write it.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get a publisher. No one was interested for a very long time because it's a very strange setup that I've written it in quite an unusual way and I couldn't get it.
It is. I mean, the books are described as Bridget Jones gets a critical thinking makeover. God knows Bridget Jones needs it.
Yeah.
But they're basically a very accessible handbook of everyday practical critical thinking. And they're a mixture of fiction and analysis. So, Annie, you've created these characters, so there's this fictional narrative, and woven throughout, at the end of each chapter, there's an analysis of what happens from a critical thinking point of view, and then these really great punchlines that sum it all up at the end. And it's hilarious.
Well, I plundered my friends' lives and my own life because I was, fairly rubbish in my 20s and made very bad decisions about everything, including men, until I met my husband.
As many of us do.
Just like to say that until I met my husband. It's been very good since then. But I made some very, very rubbish decisions. My friends were still making rubbish decisions in all sorts of contexts. So I plundered their lives and I put animals in it because I really like dogs and really like cats. And so then I made the narrative up and eventually I found a publisher who got the fact that you could actually combine narrative with something that was more didactic. Because as we know, narrative trumps data every time. As we know by the anti-vaxxers, because narrative can be used for good or evil. So the anti-vaxxers had a really, really strong narrative. It's obviously horrible and rubbish, but they do, and it's quite hard for science to counter. So I use that idea of narrative to try and get my point across.
You can't sell a bad story.
I'm sorry?
You can't sell a bad story, period.
Yep. I don't know what you meant, Mr. Green.
Yeah, no, it was a good story, so you sold it. Yeah, I got it.
Can you take it?
I'll later.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure it was really smart.
Yeah, no, it was.
I can talk to you about it later.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Okay, well, let's talk a bit more about the book and dig into some of the scams, because I think from reading the book, yes, it's about critical thinking and it's about the brain and all sorts of things, but the main theme is scams. And we've got the obvious scams to start with. So the main character, Kat, she gets scammed by somebody pretending to be from eBay. She gets sucked into a multi-level marketing meeting. Somebody who wants to get her on board and tells her she can be her own boss and be her own boss lady. And she also gets scammed by a friend who
Yeah.
steals a lot of money from her.
Yeah, we can't say who that is in case you all want to buy the book.
Yeah, no spoilers. But
$31.99.
yes, and we do have copies to sell here,
Yes,
so,
we do.
and Annie will sign them for you.
So I guess the premise of that is that there's really, really obvious scams, like being scammed by eBay on the phone, because our brains, as soon as we hear, that's okay, talk as loudly as you want. As soon as we hear something, a familiar name, there's a heuristic around that. So a familiar name, we feel comfortable and we think, okay, I trust this person or I trust this product. And the other scamming, I guess, is that it's around relationships, and this is very, very pivotal, I think, in salient for women, is that we end up in these relationships that are not to our, are not going to serve us.
Not to our benefit.
They are not to our benefit, but we post-rationalise it. So, underneath it might be, I don't want to be on my own. But the post-rationalising is, well, he's doing the best he can, and things are probably going to get better. And maybe the universe has provided me with this relationship to give me the opportunity to learn something, which of course is just appalling nonsense. But it's amazing how many women believe that, right?
And that's another theme that you explore, the idea that the universe is meaningful, and it's the idea of magical thinking and how you can easily get sucked into this magical thinking that there's purpose to everything. And
yeah. I think human beings are very unhappy with the idea that we live in a random universe. I think we don't like it. I think we're discomforted by this idea.
well, we want control.
We
don't
do want control, so this idea that we can have meaning and that there is purpose and something is controlling us is very, very appealing. It's either religion or we might go on to New Age thinking, which is the universe. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So you make the point, there are dishonest people in the world, they'll take advantage of us, and we are not hampered, but we have a natural willingness to trust and a desire to belong, and that's why we fall into these relationships. But that's not the whole story, and it's not the be all and end all of the book. So there are many, many other aspects of modern life.
Well, I was going to say as
Yeah.
well is that intelligence doesn't protect us against cognitive biases. That the neural activity in our brains, that it doesn't, in fact, intelligence often just means you can post-rationalise more efficiently what has already been decided in your limbic system. So, for an example, my friend that was at the launch.
Yes.
Yes. So,
Please talk about it.
So, very award-winning journalist, very, very smart. Very, very, very smart girl. And she saw online an advertisement for keto gummies. Anybody heard of keto gummies? Right, keto gummies. Now, she had heard somewhere that they were actually scammy, but she went ahead and ordered them anyway, this packet. Now, they arrived and they looked exactly like that. Except they were super, super sugary, which is not very keto, right? Anyway, so she orders them. They take weeks to arrive. And when they do arrive, she opens them, she looks at it and she goes, oh my God, I've been scammed. And I've written down, this is what you get from having a keto gummy. As soon as you start taking keto gummies, your body shifts into a fat-burning state. You quickly induce ketosis in the body, which means you can shed those extra pounds, improve your health, support your digestion, aid metabolism, increase energy, and boost your immune system.
It sounds great. How much does it
Sounds
cost?
great.
How
Well,
much does
it
cost?
cost her $300 every month for 6 months. Until she noticed they were taking it out, and then she had to cancel her credit card, which was like
She
such
missed
a
the last
relaxing
bit.
experience. Sorry?
She missed the last bit, and you can fly.
And you can fly as well.
That's
Exactly,
right.
exactly.
That's because you lose the pounds.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You're suddenly lighter. So the thing is that she's smart. So what happened in her brain that she thought to herself, okay, maybe they haven't worked for other people, but they're going to work for me. And it's all about motivated reasoning. You know, women, we've all got to be thin. If you're not thin, then you're just not a worthy human being. So that's what drove her. Emotion trumps reason. Her rational brain knew it wasn't right, but her emotional brain took over. And for all of us, it's exactly the same. And your smartness and your skepticism, I mean, you're sort of ahead of the rest of the population, but don't think that because you're skeptical that your brain is going to be immune from these cognitive biases, because man, are they pervasive. And advertising just plugs into them so perfectly, and especially the whole wellness journey. You know, wellness just plugs into this desire. I'm going to be well, my children are going to be well, I'm going to be thin, I'm going to be ageless, whatever it is. The promise, of course, is massive, and the results are pretty much nil.
Yes.
Drives me nuts.
Yeah, and you also make the point that the whole wellness scam, I mean, this is an aspect of modern life which isn't always recognised as a scam, but it is. And it also shifts the responsibility onto the consumer.
Yeah,
I've said that.
Yeah, absolutely. So especially things like, I know that they will send, part of wellness is your emotional and psychological wellness. And you can have your psychological wellness by doing affirmations and doing things in the mirror, whatever it is, and just creating the world that you want. And so they will send you an email and charge you to send that, to receive this email. And then you are meant to do this practice, this manifestation practice, and of course at the end of it, nothing has improved for you. They are just richer because it's their product. But it's your fault. It's terrible, terrible victim blaming. And unfortunately, circumstances and luck has gone out of fashion. And we're now in this world where you are in full control, and if you're not well, and if you're not thin, and if you don't have the best job, well, that's on you. And it's so wrong. And it's a very horrible sort of middle class activity, and I don't like it. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, and well, that's another scam that's Annie explores in the book, and that's the one of empowerment.
Yeah.
Empowerment.
Who's in corporate here? Anybody in corporate? Yeah. Do they talk about, so my whole family. Do they talk about empowerment? In
Yes.
corporate?
Yes.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
they do. They talk about empowerment.
Empowerment, whatever that means.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's like it's all corporate language. It actually doesn't mean anything, and it's the same thing.
In fact, the people who talk about empowerment, they're the micromanagers.
Yeah,
They're the ones who drive you insane.
yeah, that's
As long as
exactly.
you stay in your box. You're empowered.
That's right. That's right. So it's empowerment. They talk about empowering people without actually giving them the agency to do the job that they've been told they have to do, and then it's on the person of why they can't achieve it. So empowerment is just a horrible, horrible buzzword, and now they're rolling out wellness programs in companies, yoga, I don't know, yoga and stretching, whatever, at lunchtime, because and I think the purpose is, well, then you'll be able to work longer because you've done a bit of meditation, you've done some yoga, and of course, instead of actually paying them more or doing the right thing by their employees. So I find it really tricksy. I don't like it.
Oh, it is very tricky. All the free meals and free classes, they're just
Yeah,
just
just
to
stay
keep you
longer.
longer in the office.
Stay
Yes.
here till 9 o'clock, you've done yoga and meditated, you should be fine.
Yeah. Yes, and and if you're lucky, your yoga session will just
Yeah, yeah.
pull you back from
Pull you
the
back.
brink.
Not that I'm anti-yoga, I'm actually only a bit
No.
anti-yoga.
You're a bit anti-yoga.
What? Seems so slightly, yeah.
What, the yoga or the
I don't like
or
the
the spirituality behind
the
it?
spiritual bizarre, the chakra business and like that.
Yes. So, more corporate scams, personality tests.
Okay,
Where do we start?
well, we start with Myers-Briggs.
So classic.
Myers-Briggs, anybody here had to do a Myers-Briggs? It's just,
All of us.
wow.
failed.
Did you?
How do you fail Myers-Briggs?
You don't have
Don't
a
answer.
You're devoid of personality. You failed.
I've had a personality like us.
Yeah, it's actually more appealing than being an ENTJ or whatever you're meant to be. So they still use it, Myers-Briggs. And the idea is so redundant and not built on science And these things that are set up as a polarity, so you're either sensing or you're intuiting or sensing. You can so do both, and like 5 minutes apart. Also, when you do the test, you do the test like an hour later and it's completely different. And they hire and fire people on the back of Myers-Briggs. Well, yeah, it was invented by 2 journalists in like 1930. Also, the other one is that they still use is what's the one that Thingy uses?
Hogan personality.
No, yeah, that's
There's Hogan, there's disc,
There's disc. No, there's the
Oh, the Enneagram.
no.
Numbers.
That's horrible as well. Enneagram's horrible.
MTRS.
Is it? Anyway, there's thousands of them. They're all horrible, and they should not be used, and they are used, and then the companies that promote them. It's if you're, if you look up or look down, if you're
Neuro-linguistic.
Neuro-linguistic.
Oh,
NLP.
NLP.
Oh my God. It's still used. NLP. It has absolutely no scientific validity at all. Yes.
These guys would have gone to Air Heart System training too. Who guys who developed this must have gone to EST. I'm sure.
Oh, you think it's S-based?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's it. So it's derived from S. That is
Not
interesting.
derived. I think they interpreted it based on their
Yeah.
logic.
yeah, no.
Is it derived? Somebody look up and say, hello, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say on Myers-Briggs, at one stage when I was responsible for a large recruiting effort, they were trying to sell me Myers-Briggs. This was a credible, reputable psychology firm in Crow's Nest. I won't name them. But they produced a lot of supporting academic material, and when you dug behind it, it was all done by a wholly owned subsidiary of the owner of the IP in that test. And it was under a name, there was no linking of the name.
No conflict of interest.
It was actually fraudulent, it wasn't only...
It's totally fraudulent. Yeah. And it's still popular, and it's a really interesting example of the bandwagon effect. The fact that other people do it, therefore it must be fine, therefore I shouldn't have to question its validity. But people are sacked on it and hired on it. And my friend's in Ambo, and she was telling me that people still put on their, not referrals, what is it, thank you, on their CV that they're an ENTJ, because apparently it's the most popular one or something, because you're an extrovert. It's terrible. So that is still rolled out through companies.
Yes.
I'm sorry, yeah. Do it now. Get your CV out now. Change it.
It's like psychological pareidolia.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, and
It's like a pattern
it's
recognition.
astounding how many psychologists buy into it. I have a very dear friend who's a psychologist
Wow.
who loves Myers-Briggs.
Wow.
Loves it.
Wow.
Do you know Robert Spillane? He was a recently retired professor of management at Macquarie University, and he was a very vocal critic of personality testing.
Yes, I think we actually had him speak at a Sceptics dinner about 10 to 15 years ago.
His material is worth looking
Yes,
up.
it is
Brilliant
very
on
good,
this
yeah.
subject. He's a
Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
very powerful critic of personality testing.
This is Robert Spillane.
Spillane.
Yeah.
Well, I think just for starters, that introverts are just left completely in the shade, and it's just there's this very strong bias
Speak for yourself.
that you have to be extroverted.
I'm an INTJ, by the way. So my friend tells me.
I'm an Aquarian. That's why I get on, right?
Yeah. And actually, that just reminds me. This faith, like people have faith in the system, and as skeptics, when we've looked into the psychics, the astrology, the tarot cards, and we say to people, these things, they don't have any validity. And Lynn Kelly used to do psychic readings,
Yeah.
and people were so desperate to believe that they'd say to her, "Oh well, you say you're a fake, but you obviously have a power that you don't realise." And then she'd say, "No, I really am just faking this." And they'd say, "Well, okay, if it's not you, it's the system." So it's these things gain their own life.
It's
And-
emotion trumps reason every
Yes.
single time, and also we like an identity. people really, really like to belong to a group, and they like to have an identity. And you know, to be able to say, you know, we get on because I'm a Capricorn and you're a whatever you are, you know, then there's like this mantle over the top of us and something to hang behaviour on. So people need to belong.
That's right. Or if somebody's, you know, not behaving themselves, oh, they're just such a Cancer male.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I think that drive in us to belong and to have an identity, often in the face of that, our critical thinking skills just lay down. They just lay down because of this driver to believe what we want to believe. I mean, look what's happened to the anti-vaxxers now. Now because we're nearly all vaccinated, they're now hating on trans people. I mean, it's just nuts. They've got to go somewhere with it, right?
So, of the scams, like, do you have a top three? Top three that you deal with in the book? Or do you just hate them all?
I do hate them all. I've got a psychic in my second book, and I
Lovely woman.
she's really lovely.
No, she isn't. She's a bully.
horrible. She's a horrible bully, and she takes advantage of these Croatian people that live in the building because bad things are happening, and she says it's a curse. And I don't like her, and I don't like that. I'm very unhappy about that. I'm very unhappy about wellness because I think wellness is so pernicious and so dangerous, and it's so bad for women, and so much of it is aimed at us at a time when women are actually trying to put their head above the parapet and find some parity and find some equity. I find wellness to be deeply disturbing because it drags us straight back down because of all the magical thinking. So I don't like wellness, and I don't like MLMs, multi-level marketing. I don't like that either.
Yeah. Okay, so those are the scams that, you know, everyday life scams, and there are a lot of techniques in here to deal with them. And at the end of each chapter, as you say, you can become your own lie detector, and there's a lie detection section at the end of each chapter.
And just become aware, I think, of the top, you know, the sort of the top 10, 20 cognitive biases. And whenever you're in the position, right?
Is the biggest scammer. The biggest scammer is our own brains.
Yep.
And we're always battling against it, we're always battling against those cognitive biases, but the more you can be aware of them and
Absolutely.
know what you're doing.
And just, if ever, even if it's yourself, if you're going to make a decision or someone's trying to sell you something, where's the evidence? If it's a dress or a relationship, or you're going to hire someone, or you're going to fire someone, or you're going to buy a unit, where's the evidence? Don't just go with the way you are feeling about something because we are motivated towards doing what we want to do. And I think our instincts and our intuitions have been elevated to this sort of terrible spiritual level where they're sacrosanct, and they're just not. So get acclimatized around the top biases that you're likely to fall into, and where's the evidence? Check for it. And you know, if you can't trust yourself, go outside your bubble and ask somebody else, because collusion is delicious. There's nothing nicer than finding someone that's going to violently agree with what you think. So yeah, that's what I think.
Fantastic. Great advice. Thank you, Annie.
Thank you.
Well, I think we'll say a huge thank you to Annie, and then we'll throw open the floor to questions.
Okay, can I ask a question which might be a bit contentious? Is there a book for why smart men get lies, get told lies, false lies?
Yeah, writing it at the moment, Tim, and
Okay,
it's about
okay.
you. Yeah. You're my central character.
It's a concern, actually, I mean, sort of that,
Well, it's the same. I mean, look, you know, it's marketing, and I do think more nonsense is aimed at women. It's just the reality of it. But of course, men have exactly the same propensity.
Yeah. Also,
cognitive biases.
don't they say write about what you know?
Yeah, I do. I'm not
Write about what you know. And but yeah, we're not saying men are immune. I mean, I was telling Annie
Well,
before.
that story, tell that.
Oh yes, my former employer got scammed, and
Smart person.
very smart person, very successful, highly successful. But in comes an email from what looks like a legitimate email address, legitimate sign-off, saying, okay, we don't want to go ahead with this purchase, you've got the money in your trust account, we're not going ahead, can you please refund the money and send it to this account? So, he did.
Oh, dear.
$37.5 million. Yep, in one transaction.
Did you get it back?
No,
Oh my God.
no. Fortunately, it was covered by the firm's insurance. I know, but
Does he still have a job?
It was
Does he
his
still have
company,
a job?
wasn't it? She said 400.
he owned the company, so
Sack
he
himself.
couldn't sack
He
himself.
should have done his own Myers-Briggs right before he did it.
I think one of the dangers is that if you ever see someone who wants a application for a job in writing, it tends to be because they're using graphology
Oh, yes.
to do your assessment. Okay, so run for
Is
the
that
hills.
true?
Yes.
Oh my Lord.
I mean, in this day and age where everyone's got a computer, everyone does, on the phone or via email or whatever, if they want it in writing, it's because they're doing graphology, which is a pseudoscience.
Either that or they want to make sure that you're not using GPT.
You can still copy it.
We have a colleague who keeps falling for scams. Like, I don't mean rarely, I mean 4 to 5 times a year. Like, we've disabled their ability to click email links. How much is that sort of an isolated thing that is, this person is susceptible to scams, versus how much of this is this person has, poor judgment? Do people with good judgment still fall for scams, or is that, a warning sign we should worry about their intelligence and their wisdom generally? Like, which is it?
I mean, it's interesting that it's repetitive. I don't know. Intelligence, as I keep saying, is not actually the key to this. What it is people's capacity, and it's interesting they've done all this work around cults, okay? And they used to think that cults always attracted people that were marginalised and on the fringes. And then they worked out that cults actually, the people that were attracted to them were optimistic and trusting. And that was more in their personality profile. So that sort of correlates, doesn't it? You look at cults and then you look at someone who's being consistently scammed and they're not reading the signals. They're just, because there is a part of our brain that is hip to this stuff, but we can override it. So it's like hope versus judgment, but it's not, in my experience, it is not an intelligence thing. To her point, very, very smart people. Just take his computer off him, like absolutely, just, lock him up somewhere for the rest of the year. That's all you can do. It's so devastating.
It's at every level that you're finding that thing. We've got an article here that Ian contributed to actually in a recent issue. You can get a free copy there. On Nobel Prize winners who step slightly out of their areas and fall straight down a rabbit hole. Actually, it happens a lot, and it happens at every level. So it's not just,
It's the vitamin C guy, right?
there's a whole bunch of them.
Linus Pauling.
No, there's a whole bunch of them in this article. You get a copy of this here. Or, by the way, you can actually download most of our magazines for free off our website. So, have a look at that one. But it's everywhere. Next question.
Sorry.
I'll take it as a comment. Go on.
Yeah.
I think all of us one thing we need to accept is sometime in our life, at least once, we're going to get scammed.
Yeah.
You work with that and then use the principle of question everything, and you may be able to save yourself from that after that one incident.
That's
but
right.
you will get scammed, however
agree.
smart you are.
I agree. And it can be a small scam, it can be believing it with someone in a conversation, or someone can, tell you they're from eBay and empty your bank account.
I worked in IT security for 25 years, so I know this.
Oh my Lord, okay.
Didn't Jared Hayne get scammed in prison
Yeah,
when he was in jail?
Jared Hayne got scammed in prison. Sucked in Jared Hayne.
I was just going to ask, have you read the book Noise?
Yes.
Because that's a classic to me about Irrationality.
Yeah, it is. Man, it's dense, isn't it? That writing, it's
Very
why I
hard to
wrote
read,
as,
very
because
hard to read.
I know it made me feel stupid. Yep.
Whereas this is easy to read.
Easy to read.
What's this for
And
courses?
funny.
Hi, thank you. It's Sue. I'm interested in the discussion about intelligence.
Yes.
And what I've seen is that people who assume that they're well-read and knowledgeable in their own area think that they're knowledgeable across all areas.
Right.
And there's no lack of examples of people who are very clever lawyers but not very clever doctors and vice versa.
That's right.
So did you want to comment, would you please comment a bit about how people can be intelligent but just don't have either the critical thinking skills of a different discipline or don't have the content knowledge of the other discipline?
What we know is that people's critical thinking skills are, hang on, I completely lost my train of thought. Just let me think for a second. Right, highly intelligent people are better at post-rationalising to themselves and to other people. So if I'm very, very smart, I'm going to post-rationalise an emotional decision I made in my limbic system, and I'm going to convince myself and I'm going to convince other people that it's correct because I'm probably more articulate and I've probably got a more sophisticated style of thinking. And it's exactly what you say. Just because I'm smart over here and I understand this contextually, then there's an assumption that that smartness is going to be transferred over here. And it's absolutely not. And then they'll do something, it feels right. You know, we think our feelings are accurate and correct. They're just a feeling. They don't actually, they shouldn't be the arbiter of what we do. But that's what happens. So that's why smartness is almost, you have to be extra careful because we can post-rationalise to ourselves, I think, you know, very, very efficiently. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Thank you.
James Randi, a noted skeptic, used to have what he described as, he didn't have it, he described the PhD disease. And as soon as you get a PhD, you can't be wrong about anything.
Yeah, it's absolutely right.
You may have mentioned it because I was trying to work out where my steak went, but I recently went to the Mind, Body, Spirit, I guess is what it calls it, Mind, Body Wallet, 5G protection, psychics
Why
and all
did
that.
you do that?
I have a friend and we have a shared passion of just trying to take the emotion from the front of our brain and look around. And in doing that, there's numerically, there were far more women than
That's
men
right.
in the audience. And
That's right.
I couldn't, at the time I was there, come up with reasons of why that's the case. So what reasons would you think exist for that?
Look, we have to accept the fact that we are in a patriarchy. That is the sad truth of it. We would like there to be parity, there's not. We are in a patriarchy. Women literally have less power. So what do we do about that? We look to sources to solve problems for us, to elevate our lives, to fix our problems that actually don't. And we are vulnerable. And most of the marketing at those mind, body, spirit, any of that marketing is aimed at women. And the other thing I think is that women are more likely to form community. There is a strong driver in women to need each other. You know, if something happens to me, I formed a relationship with Jess and she's going to take care of my children, even if she's a Cancer, which is like disappointing, but that's okay. Yeah. What's your rising sign? That's the most important thing.
I have a faint state.
Yeah, that's right. So.
Sure as, isn't it?
So I think those two things, where they are looking for ways to solve their issues, there's so much pressure on women to be everything in an environment where they don't have the same agency as men. So I think they go to the wrong place to get their problems solved, and also there is just a stronger sense of community. And that's in marketing, just, you know, Gwyneth Paltrow, I give you goop. I hand you goop with her candles that smell like, anyway, I won't go there.
Speaking of Mind, Body, Wallet, you should talk to Richard and Ian, who are the only two people I know who got thrown out of Mind, Body, Wallet.
That is, you must be so proud, are you? Why did they throw you out?
Well, it was thanks to Ian.
I kept questioning the presenters on all their different reflexology and stuff.
Oh,
And they didn't like it.
Amazing, I'm so surprised.
They call security on you.
Cue the exorcism.
Yeah, that's so funny. There's one more question over here, Mr. Tim. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, so sorry. Yes.
That's all right, I'll ask a question.
Yes.
Or I'll actually contribute something.
Please do.
I learned an enormous amount from a book I read in the last couple of years written by Robert Sapolsky. He's a neuroendocrinologist from Berkeley, I think.
Yes.
No, he's from Stanford. And
he's got like an accent though, hasn't he, when you hear him speak?
A little bit, but he wrote a book called Behave.
Yeah.
It's an absolute doorstop. It's about 800 pages. It took me a year to read it. On every page, he describes 3 or 4 different experiments of how the brain works.
Yes.
And he tells you why you behave the way you do. And he does an absolute superb job. So it's really, I can't recommend more highly. If you haven't read it, the recommendation for the book, and I think he writes it in the book as well, he says everybody on the planet should read this book. Not because he makes money out of it, but because it not only makes you a better person,
that's right.
It makes you better towards other people, and it makes you understand yourself, and you be kinder to yourself after you read it. So it is the book of the decade as far as I'm concerned.
Except for my book, which is also...
Yeah, exactly.
Stop plugging someone else's book.
No, but your book is not a neuroscience book.
That is correct.
So,
but I tell you what, it's more accessible than 800 pages.
Absolutely.
And it won't take you a year to read it.
So did it work? Did it work?
Sorry?
Did it work on you?
It certainly did. I think I'm a different person now that I've read that book. I can honestly say that. So I can highly recommend it to everybody. It's absolutely brilliant.
You're certainly an older person now that you've read it.
Yeah, well, you're older, that's true.
Didn't you say earlier you had a personality bypass?
One more.
One more question over here.
Just one from...
I'm just interested in what you think of when you say that people buy these things and it's not going to work. What's your thoughts on the power of the brain thinking it's going to work and the placebo effect and it working because the power of belief? I'm just interested in what you think of that. So it does work.
Yeah.
But it's not, you know what I mean?
It's not the product.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fascinating research on the placebo effect, I know. And I think in some situation, in some context, absolutely, someone will take a tablet and they will feel better, but they do know that that's only going to work if the chemistry is available in the body. So, for instance, you're not going to cure yourself of cancer, right, by believing it, but you might be able to manage pain better. So absolutely the placebo effect is very, very interesting, but then people take that and then they go, see, I cured that, and then they start selling a product and there you have it. Thank you.
Are you saying that
Is this a complicated question?
Oh no, I was just going to say. I mean, you're talking about the placebo effect that lives inside of human biology.
Yeah.
If we're talking about, is there a placebo effect around cause and effect in a relationship or in the external environment? If I believe that this is going to work and I approach it in a certain way, is that more likely to have me succeed?
Is that positive thinking?
Well, positive thinking. I mean, does it correlate? If you have inside your body the ingredients to heal yourself, then that's when it will work. If you have in your circumstances.
Are you asking me if positive thinking actually affects the quality of a relationship? Because that's about as complicated as I can answer it.
Okay,
I had 1.5 glasses of
Sorry,
wine.
I'm asking a convoluted question,
Yes,
but
too much for me. Would you like to answer it?
No.
You need this. You need
I really do.
We need the one card.
There's one more question, I think.
I think we will wrap up now, but people are welcome to come and ask Annie more questions. And how much is it?
$30.
$30.
Where can we buy it?
Here.
Whoa. And Annie will autograph it.
I'll autograph it.
Angus and Robinson.
If someone can find me a pen,
Go to
I'll
the airport.
autograph it.
You can't get a
We
sign
should
at the
have a
airport.
Sceptics pen somewhere.
No.
We should.
Anyway, join me in giving a very warm thank you to